This podcast is powered by The Plug.
Welcome to Attitude at Altitude,
where three Colorado women say what everyone else is thinking,
but nobody's saying out loud.
I'm Brenda Morrison.
I'm Sheila McDonald.
And I'm Kathy Lucas. We're unbiased,
unfiltered, unscripted,
and unapologetically ourselves.
And we're here to talk about what's happening in our community, our state,
our country, and yes, our lives.
With zero fluff and a whole lot of attitude.
This is the podcast for anyone who's earned their opinions, lived some life, and isn't about to start holding back now.
So buckle up.
We're at altitude.
And we like it up here. Hello, welcome to Attitude at Altitude. Sheila, Brenda, how are you both this morning?
Very good, Kathy. How are you?
I'm well, doing good. Hoping it's not going to get too hot.
Yeah. Good. I'm doing like a lot of people my age. I'm supporting my older father through some health challenges. So going back and forth between Manitou and Denver a lot. And as usual, encountering lots of bumps in the healthcare system. I do have an idea for a bill, you guys. So we don't have to talk about it today, but at some point we're talking about it. Having my Manitou incline cut.
Wow,
you are ready. Sorry about your dad, Brenda. We are here for you. Just I hope you know that. So this morning, you guys, I'm excited. I wanted to start with a note from a listener. We got our first listener shout out. But basically, they said, you all were spot on with your segment on e-bikes last time. The problem is getting worse and we really need to do something about it. And then they shared a link from Denver 7, which was titled E-Bike and E-Moto Safety Concerns Grow as Summer Begins and Teens Hit the Streets. So exactly what we were talking about. But basically, this isn't just a Park Hill problem. We knew that. It's not just a Denver problem, but this is going on in Denver, Highlands Ranch, Aurora, I think Colorado Springs. The problem's getting worse, not better, with riders taking over intersections. They're popping wheelies, and then they're riding down the wrong way down streets. Aurora Police Department started by trying to issue parents tickets. So having parents get $250 tickets, that apparently hasn't worked. And so now they're pivoting and they're providing education and they're giving out pamphlets and explaining what's legal and what's not. So enforcement's been hard. You have riders that are cutting through yards and sidewalks to evade police. And I was really thinking it's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. If you remember when he was running through the sidewalks and through the yards to get home in time so his parents didn't know that he was gone. But that's happening. And what I wanted to ask today is, what do you all think? Is this a parenting problem? Is this a policy problem? Is this tech really outpaced the law problem? And really, where's the line between our kids are being kids, at least they're on their bikes and they're outside and they're not on their phones, to, is this really a genuine public safety hazard?
I think it's one of those issues where the law hasn't caught up with technology, and in this case, the e-bike. I think that it has to be a statewide law. I don't think it can be different from municipality to municipality because that's going to be so hard to enforce. Are you in Glendale? Are you in Denver? Are you in Aurora? Are you in Greenwood Village? Are you in Littleton? With a different rule in each city. I saw a kid just this week pop a wheelie, and he was pretty small. Now, that doesn't mean anything because size doesn't definitely correlate to age, but no helmet, popping a wheelie, and going at least 35 miles an hour on these e-bikes. I was going 30 and he was going faster than me. So I don't have a speed gun per se, and so what do you do? I think right now it's got to be up to the parents to manage it, and they're not managing it. And so now what do we do? And do you keep bringing in more government regulations? If you buy a bike that can go over 20 miles an hour, do you need a license to ride it? Do you need a license for the bike so that police can see who owns it? Do you need to be required to go through a training before you can buy or ride a bike and get a license? That seems like a lot to me, but parents are buying these kids these bikes that go 50 miles an hour. and there's no helmet requirement. And so some do wear helmets. I've seen some with helmets on, but a lot are not wearing helmets, and kids are getting injured. There's some serious injuries that are happening. And they're kids, and you know this thing, at 15, everything gets unplugged in their brain. They spend the next 10 years trying to replug it in, and so they're not great until they're about 25 or 26 in terms of decision making, especially the boys. Sorry, I hate to say that, but and so you're having kids with underdeveloped frontal lobes making bad decisions, as we all did. It's just the consequences are so much greater. So I think it has to be a statewide policy. I just don't know how much regulation is going to happen or people will accept.
I think that's a good point. I think one of the challenges is that many of these, even these bike trails, cross multiple jurisdictions, right? That was the point, right? That you could ride from Denver to the Aurora, down to Chatfield. That was the beauty of these bike paths, that you could circle the city on your bike. They were interconnected. They're a great thing. But if you're on a road bike and somebody's even on an e-bike zipping by you at 20, 25 miles an hour, or you're on the walk, or you're walking. That was the point of these paths. And it is challenging now. It is challenging the mountain bike community as to what kind of trails e-bikes can go on. The traditional mountain bike where you're pedaling with your body, and the e-bikes where you're zipping up the hill. It's a challenging situation right now.
So I think let's pick up from our assignment from last time, and maybe one of us reaches out to the mayor's office, one of us reaches out to city council, and one of us reaches out to our state legislator, and maybe see what the response we get, because we're going to do city council. But I do think it's a Colorado issue, and it's got to be consistent, whatever the legislation ends up being. So why don't we do that, and we'll report back.
Okay. Sounds good.
I've reached out to my city council person and I haven't heard back yet, but I'll also reach out to my state senator. My state rep is in flux because he lost.
You should get the new one though now, because I guess Iris Halpern, she's new. Maybe she'll return phone calls.
All right, I'll do it.
I will reach out to Councilman Watson, because I think he will be attending Greater Park Hill community meeting this week.
Oh, good.
Okay. I will reach out to the mayor's office, probably to public safety.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what we hear, because I think it's going to be interesting now that they've been on the street a while, and there's more data around crashes. And as I've said 3 times now, but it's going to say it again because that's what I do. We have all these bike lanes that these e-bikes don't ride in. They ride in the main lane. And it's, why do we have all these bike lanes if nobody's riding in them? So I think it's sort of
the sidewalk.
Yeah, and I think, and on the sidewalk, that's the other thing. So I think those are questions that we should ask is there just say you can't be on the sidewalk on those e-bikes? Again, though, who's going to police it? The Denver police barely police a car situation.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, we'll report back on that.
Okay. So
And maybe we'll get more feedback from people too on what they hear and see.
Yeah, we'd love to hear more. So if you're out there, please send us a note and we'll report back. And if you have a specific question, we'll get it answered for you. So what do we want to talk about? What else is going on in Denver and what is going on in Colorado since we last gathered?
I think more people are announcing for city council. And so those races are all heating up, and it's interesting because DSA is playing a role. They had the win over DeGette, and so they're feeling very empowered, and their candidates are coming forward. You saw Chantel Lewis announced for mayor. We talked about that last time a little bit. But I think Lisa Calderon might be a DSA candidate too. I'm unclear on that. But in far northeast Denver, there's 11 candidates that have announced.
Unbelievable.
For Stacey Gilmore's seat, one is Scott Gilmore, Stacey's husband. The pickleball people do not like him. And Kadisha Haynes has announced for that. Alan Webb, who's Wellington's grandson, has announced for that. And so I think there's all these seats that are open. And so you're going to see a huge change in city council from where it is right now, because I think 6 seats are open.
Wow.
And Amanda Sawyer's not running again. So District 5 is open. She's only served 2 terms. She could run again. She's not. So she's leaving. Cashman's leaving. Kevin Flynn is leaving. Chantel Lewis is leaving. Stacey Gilmore is leaving. And I want to say there's one more leaving. Anyway, there's 5 or 6 seats that are going to flip. And then, interesting enough, Diana Romero Campbell was elected president of City Council with Serena as the president pro tem. I think is that what it's called, president pro tem. And so you're going to have whole new leadership at City Council, which is going to be interesting. I think there's going to be some hard City Council races. Flor Alvarez in District 7, she's got a couple of candidates that are pretty strong. One is Will Fenton. He works for the city. He's from that neighborhood. He could really give her a run. And she's had a bumpy first term. And so I think there's a lot to watch in the upcoming. And John Martinez, her husband, Monica Martinez, just announced for City Council at large. And her kickoff is August 9th. And I think she could be a very strong candidate for at large. She's worked on the homeless issue extensively. Her organization bought hotels on Colfax where they house people. She worked for Hickenlooper. She has a good knowledge of how the city works. So she could be a very strong at-large candidate.
Agree.
So I think all of that is going on. I was on Colfax yesterday. I want to say this for the city. I think they really could do a better job. I was over at 11 Colfax and Eudora at Viva Coffee Shop, where I try to hold a lot of meetings because Leo and his wife Elise own that. They're just getting by because of now Eudora's shut down. And so you can't turn from Colfax onto Eudora. So to get to Viva, you got to go around. And they have signs that are literally maybe 11 by 17 that say businesses still open in light blue and pink coloring. You can't see that from anywhere. And the city really should have banners along that fence. Banners, not 17 by 14 signs saying businesses are open, and make it about the businesses on that Eudora one. And they had the businesses are open sign on the side of Eudora, not the other side of Colfax. So if you're already at the business, you see the sign businesses are open. But if you're driving down Colfax, which is now the 2 lanes on what normally is the lane that goes west, now is a 2-lane going east and west, that's where the banners should be held, and they should just be on it. Where, okay, we're going to make banners for these businesses, and we're going to hang them for the month while we shut down the part of their street. I think, the city would get some real positive feedback. I also think that it could keep restaurants and small businesses open. I don't know who you talk to at the city about that, but the city has really not done enough for these small businesses.
Yeah, I agree. It's so tough for them. It's so tough for the businesses and for the consumer. You have to be so thoughtful, intentional when you go to one of those businesses, because you have to make this greater effort to get there.
Correct. Even as if you're even trying to cross Colfax, you have to figure out, like, how do you drive all the way down to Colorado, drive all the way down to Monaco?
Yeah. I cross at Glencoe right at the moment.
Yeah.
Glencoe is, I cross at Glencoe too. Cherry Street is shut down.
Exactly.
And so Siete Leguas over there, I was in there the other night, last Friday night. I took a couple of people there. Empty. I mean, that place is usually packed on a Friday night. And you can't get to it. You can't cross the street if you park on the other side of Colfax to get to it. And there's no sign saying that they're open. I really think the city could be doing a much better job for those businesses and supporting them and getting some energy into that corridor.
Agree.
Rude.
Yeah. And then in Colorado, we've had a few announcements the last few weeks. First of all, Phil Weiser has announced his lieutenant governor running mate is going to be Leslie Dahlkemper, which I think is fabulous. I have had the pleasure in K-12 education to interact with Leslie over the years, and she is just very collaborative. So I think that's really exciting. What do you all think about that? And then what do you think about these other announcements with Victor Marx and then Greg Lopez throwing his hat in the ring as an independent?
I think Leslie brings a wide breadth of knowledge, having been a school board member and a county commissioner. So she knows local issues, the K-12 issues very well. And if used properly, she could bring great perspective to his cabinet and to his policies. So I'm hoping that she is utilized to her full capacity, which we don't always see. We always hope that the governor is fully utilizing their lieutenant governors. I'm not sure we've seen that over the past 8 years, and even prior to that. I'm not sure we saw it under Governor Hickenlooper either. They sometimes pick fabulous people, often women, and then are underutilized. So my hope is that this situation will be different, and we will see Leslie Dahlkemper utilized to her full capacity.
I agree. I think she's done so much good work. First of all, she's done great work. Fire mitigation. She's really worked hard on that in Jefferson County, and she's had to. The opioid crisis, she's worked with Phil in the Attorney General's office to lead commissions on that. And so she's very well versed in how that's impacting communities across Colorado. So she's going to be such an influence there. I think the bottom line for me is she's smart, but she is one of the hardest working elected officials in Colorado. She shows up at everything. She shows up at meetings. Whether or not they're her meetings, she shows up at a lot of meetings that the legislators put on, and she just shows up at them. She's known in a lot of places. Was on the CCI board, I think, and so she knows county commissioners across the state. She's really going to be an asset to Phil, and I am hopeful he uses her in a way that really can benefit his administration and actually all of Colorado. I just think she's such a strong pick for him. And like Donna Lynn, who was Hickenlooper's pick, and unfortunately Hickenlooper didn't use her the way she should have been used, but she still got a lot done. And I don't know enough about Diana Primavera. She's a great person. I don't know. I think she works behind the scenes, and so we don't hear a lot about her. Jared's lieutenant governor. But I think Leslie and Phil together are really going to be a very strong leadership team. So I'm thrilled that she got picked.
And then what do we think about independent Greg Lopez throwing his hat in the ring? And do you think that's going to cannibalize the Republican vote? Yeah, what are our thoughts on that?
I think it gives Republicans somewhere to go.
Exactly.
It's not Victor Marx.
I don't think it matters at all. It just doesn't matter. It's a symbolic effort. It just doesn't matter. And until that party decides who they are, or this is going to be their chapter that this narrative will continue
right
for the near future. And it's hard for us, I think, because we don't, up in Denver, we don't interact with people who support Victor Marx. Now, in the Springs, I see the signs more, certainly. And I see the letters to the editor in the Colorado Springs Gazette. And his pick, this Marine who forgot his name, Market. This is a man who's had a very distinguished military career, which is fascinating to me. I was like, okay, here's a man who has had a very distinguished career in a system, who is willing to be number 2 to someone who is, I don't know, lives in an alternative universe, maybe? And from what I read from that, his pick for lieutenant governor, this former military guy, he parrots what President Trump says. Strong borders, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but he's going to be the lieutenant governor, if he were, for the state of Colorado. I don't even think he understands the job.
Oh, I don't think Victor Marx understands the job of governor.
No, he doesn't either. Neither one of them do.
Blind leading the blind.
Yeah. This is like for them, and I hate to use this word, but this is a spiritual decision for them. I think they see themselves as this is a religious event for them.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't pick his dog, to be honest. I thought he would I think of Victor Marx as somebody who's just mocking the system and mocking the whole, like it's a big joke to him. And he doesn't care about Coloradans. He doesn't care about affordability. He doesn't care about anything that's not related to him and his religion. Here's a guy, he's like a snake salesman of the 1800s who used to ride around in their, or drive around in their cars filled with trinkets and drink this potion and all your ills will be cured. And he's made millions off of telling people that he can exorcise demons over the phone. But honestly, this is not a guy who takes his system seriously. So he picked a guy, interestingly, that has had this distinguished career. But if you're going to be his running mate, something must be off with you, because you must be agreeing with him. So I don't know if this guy was a member of his church or his ministry. I don't quite understand if Victor Marx has a church, if you'd call it that, but I don't know if this guy was a member of his ministry, so he's bought into it. I just think he's making a mockery of the system, and he's going to be irrelevant. He's going to get 1,000 campaign finance complaints. He's saying, we're going to make money off the merch I'm selling. We're going to circumvent campaign finance laws. Good luck with that. And then you have Greg Lopez, who, to his credit, is saying, Victor Marx doesn't represent my Republican Party, so I'm going to run. Although he had to have been unaffiliated for a long time, a year, to be able to run. And then he's picked a woman in Jefferson County who, she owns land up to a river. And so she's fighting that float law. And the Jefferson County took some of her property so people could beach. And they paid her $250,000, and she's complaining about it. She's called the Wicked Witch of the West, I think, on Instagram. You can Google her. Something like that. That may not be exactly correct. She just rants about her land and people floating through her property. And I don't know all the details. I know Jefferson County paid her $250,000 though. So I just think you have these folks that aren't even close to Weiser and Dahlkamper in terms of understanding Colorado and the needs we have and the pillars of our economy and what makes us work and how do we get things done. And it's just a joke. And it's embarrassing, frankly.
And the majority of the votes come out of the metro area, whether they like it or not. And that came out, the majority of votes in the primary election came out of the 5 metro areas. So that's Republicans and Democrats. Democrats outvoted Republicans in this primary because I think a lot of these normal people who, wherever they are, in the middle, unaffiliated, they were looking around going, I'm not voting. This is crazy. Or they took a D ballot and voted in the D world. That's what we're going to see. And I think that it's just a waste of time. It's just a waste of time. And yeah, I don't entirely get it, but I'd like to understand it more. I would like to understand it more, but
it's going to create a lot of headlines for Colorado between now and November. I'm sure we're going to be on a lot of Jimmy Kimmel and all kinds of
Jon Stewart, Kimmel, Oliver, because it's so juicy in terms of because it is funny Because it's funny.
Yeah, it's really funny. I wanted to ask Brenda, you about Jessica Killen. And I think it looks like she's got really good standing right now. And I know a poll was released, but it
From
was
her.
her party. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think there's dissatisfaction with the Trump administration in Colorado Springs. We're talking about the 5th Congressional District in Colorado Springs. And there is dissatisfaction amongst that voting population with him. I think you do have a lot of Republicans who are mainstream conservatives. So they're not, even though Victor Marx and Scott Bottoms came out of El Paso County, they come out of the 5th, which I think a lot of people were very unhappy with Jeff Crank's voting with the Trump administration all the time. And he's another one similar to Diana DeGette, which is interesting because he has not been in Congress that long, who did not always do a good job in articulating, I think, to the public what he was doing. If he was doing stuff, he wasn't articulating it. Even though she's been running for over a year. So he knew this was coming. And he's a smart guy. He's been around politics for a long time. I don't know if he worked for Lamborn. I don't think he worked for Lamborn, but he worked for Joel Heffley, who was a congressman out of Colorado Springs for many years, well-loved. And I would say a much more traditional Republican congressman even than his predecessor, Doug Lamborn. So he's been in this a long time. And I think he too was, where do you navigate the Trump situation? Can you afford to disagree with him publicly? And unlike Lauren Boebert, who did disagree with the Trump administration and punished for it, but I think in many ways lauded for it in her district because she went out. So while he punished her for it in Washington, her district only liked her more because of it. I think Jeff could have been in that same situation. I think he could have gone against Trump's policies for certain things and been lauded for it in Colorado Springs. Instead, he's been pretty darn quiet. So I think that point or two is real. I think there is dissatisfaction. There's within the district. I do think it will depend on these Republicans and who they vote for. I can see whether they even choose to vote because they're looking at they're looking at their races and not liking their choices. On the other hand, I think Jeff is just beginning to roll out his campaign. I'm now seeing signs of life out of that campaign. So he didn't have to run hard because she had a primary. So I think he saved his money. I'm beginning to see, as I said, signs of life. So we'll see what he does. If he does win, I think he'll eke it out. He'll eke it out, but it will be very close as of right now. She's going to have a lot of money. He's going to have a lot of money. There'll be no shortage. They've got their own media market down there. They don't share the Denver media market. So they'll both be on TV. There'll both be tons of direct mail. My dad is still a Republican down there. So we'll see. I get to see what comes in the mail and direct mail and the calls and those kinds of things. But it should be very interesting.
Yeah, another fascinating watch. I did see that Hakeem Jeffries is actually reserving TV time in Colorado Springs for this race. And so that'll be fascinating. And again, probably a lot of headlines.
And for Hakeem Jeffries, Jessica Killen would be a supporter of his. So
Exactly.
it's a yes vote for him. Unlike Malat Quiros in Denver, who may not be a yes vote for him.
Who said she's not going to vote for him?
There you go. So
that's placing your bets. So it's funny, you guys, I was talking to a client earlier this week and I was talking about, the November primary. And he said, you mean the general election? And I go, oh, I'm thinking at the federal level of the November primary. I just thought that'd be a segue. What do we think about what's going on again at the federal level? So as of Friday, Todd Blanche, not confirmed to be AG, although he will continue to be the acting AG. Lots of other things going on. The reflecting pool in DC, I think there was finally it was admitted that this was caused by the contractor and the faulty contractor who was fired to fix that. So yeah, lots of things. And then the SAVE Act itself still has failed. I think Senate is going to leave for recess August 7th. And then what's going to happen when they get back?
I think all those things are interesting. I think Todd Blanche, there should be a limit on how long he can be acting AG. And I don't know if there is legally, but Tillis and Cornyn are not going to vote for him. And I think it's a payback to Trump too. But also the slush fund is a joke. And the fact that he won't put in writing that the Trump IRS, the ban on him ever being investigated, his family ever being investigated by the IRS, I think is too much for even them. And because now they have nothing to lose. They probably, if they'd won their primaries, would not be in this position. But I think that's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if Pirro stays as U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., because she said some pretty inflammatory things. And the fact that they arrested and accused that guy with zero investigation into what happened is interesting too. I don't know if they knew what had happened and they were just looking for a scapegoat, as is their MO. But the fact that all of this is coming out, it's coming out on her, they're coming out on her hard. Who gets sacrificed by Trump in this process to keep himself looking good?
Well, he will sacrifice her, no doubt.
He will sacrifice her. I hope David Hearn sues the shit out of them. The things that they said he did, which were an absolute lie. I just think you're seeing Trump every day. I do have to mention this clip. This is off topic, but Trump, this whole Fauci thing, which if you've been watching it, has been disgusting. And Josh Hawley, first of all, he ought to go to jail. I'm sure he's done something illegal. We just don't know what it is yet. And so Trump was asked. Trump gave Fauci on January 19th of 2020, before he left, a commendation for all his work. And so Megyn Kelly, another, piece of work, says, you gave Fauci a commendation. Of course, Trump doesn't even know what the word means. And he's like, I don't know who gave him a commendation. I don't know anything about it. It's you jackass. We watched you pin it on him. And he goes on about, I don't know who gave him a commendation. I didn't give him a commendation. Yes, you did. God, we're watching this idiocy and unfold in front of us. Okay, that's number one. The 25th Amendment should be invoked just on that. Then you watched in Lindsey Graham's funeral. He's asleep during the funeral. Ladybug Lindsey was put to rest. Donald Trump slept through the whole thing. And apparently he was passing gas. If you looked at the Secret Service guy behind him, who literally was this close to holding his nose and was trying not to breathe through his nose. Honestly, 25th Amendment, and we should be calling for it every day. I will say, I think Jonah Goose is doing a great job. Jason Crow. I think Patterson, great job. Call for the 25th Amendment. Every day, that should be what we're doing. The guy's insane. He can't remember one thing he said during the COVID crisis. He's like, in March, we're going to be great. We got this going on. We're great. One person died, but we got this handled. 1 million people later, 1 million. We've lost 1 million people in this country to COVID. And for him to sit there while Fauci is screamed at is honestly one of the most disgusting periods in our history.
And we didn't know anything about all of this. This is the thing. No one knew what was coming, how it was going to work. And it shows, okay, so Fauci's a bit of an egomaniac. Not a bit. He showed that he's like a lot of people with very smart individuals, people with power. Okay, so he's an egomaniac and these diary entries are weird. But
there's only a few that are weird. The majority of them are not weird. I don't think.
But then the one that shows that when he took care of Stephen Miller's wife, that they were concerned about that because I think she was pregnant during COVID. And they were concerned. And he examined her or gave her, come on. The whole thing, first of all, it's a waste of time. And I do hope on some level when the Democrats, if and when they do take over, it is important that they pick their battles moving forward because the American people don't want to see totally things rehashed and retried like this. just move forward. It is 6 years later. It is 6 years later, and we've got new problems in this country.
Honestly, it's Rand Paul trying to have his day in court. Bernie Moreno, Bernie Moreno ought to be fired. He is a man with zero integrity and zero ethics. He is screaming at Fauci. Meanwhile, Max Miller, who's his son-in-law, who's a congressman, held a gun to Bernie Moreno's head, broke the collarbone of Bernie Moreno's grandchild. Crickets. And it's because Max Miller has something on him, apparently. These people have no integrity and no ethics. And Fauci, maybe he made mistakes. I'm sure it was all happening in real time. Mistakes are going to be made. But the people are, to say you caused us to lose 2 years of education. We didn't lose 2 years of education. You didn't cause that. It was an airborne illness. France shut down schools before we did. Germany shut down schools and universities before we did. Italy shut down schools and universities before we did. 600,000 people died under Donald Trump in 10 months. Under Joe Biden, it's 600,000 people died over 4 years. It's not even close to how poorly Trump handled this. And Fauci was doing the best he could. He was working among the idiocy of the Trump administration. I'm sure he made mistakes. Honestly, who writes in their diary thinking people are going to read it?
Yeah.
Oh, lesson learned, though. Hey, let's not put your diary on a computer that people can hack into. That might be a good lesson for us. But
old diary with a lock and key.
Why don't you write it in a leather-bound book like normal people? That's a criticism I have of Fauci. RFK getting up there and saying Fauci did. We're listening to a guy on TV talk about Fauci, who's an actual doctor who's done amazing things in his career. He is going to be recognized as a great man.
What he done with the AIDS, AIDS research, come on.
And now we got RFK, who, A, a worm ate his brain. B, he found a dead bear cub and dropped it in Central Park because he thought it was funny. 3, a heroin addict introduced heroin to not only his family, his brother and his cousins, but his brother became a heroin addict and overdosed. 4, snorts cocaine off a toilet seat. What the hell, people? That's who we're listening to over Fauci, who writes in his book, people like me. Fauci's a little guy, and I'm sorry, sometimes people who are little, men in particular, when people like them, they like it. I don't know. They might be more inclined to be like, wow, they like me. Like Sally Field.
Yeah.
They really like me. So what? He has an ego.
He's done a lot of things.
He's earned his ego, to be honest.
Absolutely.
He's earned his ego. This whole thing disgusts me. And RFK, why they even give him TV time? He's just a gross human being. How he treated his first 2 wives. I don't know how he treats his wife. I don't care. His second wife, he treated so poorly. He had a black book of all the people he slept with while he was married. These are people with zero integrity and zero morals, and we're comparing them to fucking Fauci? No.
Yeah.
That's how I feel
That's
about
just
watching
embarrassing.
TV.
And Rand Paul ought to be ashamed of himself, honestly. Just ashamed. And just the whole decorum there. Again, then they wonder why Americans are like, ew, look at these guys in Congress.
Rand Paul, he's a Nepo baby. He's a doctor. He's an ophthalmologist. But he had to create his own association to get certified. He's gross, and he's just a Nepo guy, and his neighbor hit him. You begin to understand why his neighbor took a swing at him. Honestly, the guy is he's an awful human being. He has spent the last 6 years trying to figure out a way to get back at Fauci.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile,
Kentucky.
Let me just add one more thing.
I was about to go into Kentucky, into the same part of the world. Yes.
Kentucky was, I think, in the top 10 of COVID deaths.
Yep.
You know why? Because their
Kentucky.
leaders were saying, you don't need to pay attention to this. Kentucky was in the top 10 of deaths in the United States for COVID.
Let's talk about Kentucky, because Mitch McConnell is sitting in a rehab center for months.
Is he?
Apparently.
Is he, though?
Or is it, let's just say he is. Let's just give him the benefit of the doubt that he's in a rehab center where most older people, or anyone to be honest, but let's just use older adults who may need to be in a rehab center, get 3 weeks on their Medicare before they're kicked out. So between his Medicare, let's assume he's on Medicare, and his congressional health plan and his wealth, he's managed to stay in rehab quite a bit longer than the normal Americans who would not be allowed that. And because those Kentuckians passed the bill that said the governor cannot appoint for a vacancy, that has to go to an election, I think the governor, Andy Beshear, sure, is he maybe looking at this to shore up some support for a presidential run? Maybe. But you know what? Kentucky deserves to have a voice in the Senate. They deserve to have a voice. Things have gone down. A lot of votes have gone down. But this is just another way Mitch McConnell is extending his power and his legacy. He's got power even when he's not there.
They should be demanding he's back in his seat. Andy Beshear needs to be demanding he's back in his seat by Monday, or he's going to go over to the hospital and see him. I don't think he's alive. We'd hear from somebody. Some hospital leak would happen.
Well,
you can't shout
a rehab center, supposedly.
I know, but somebody at the rehab center would leak that he's there.
Right. How could that not spill?
I don't think he's there. I think he died.
I think he did too.
Because if you're married to somebody and they were in ICU, you go to China for 2 weeks?
It is weird.
3 days.
I think she went to China for 2 weeks to shore up some stuff after he died. That's what I think.
That's the theory that's out there. Yeah.
I think he's dead. And honestly, he was dead on his feet anyway. He was dead man walking before he had that. I mean, couldn't answer a question.
Yeah.
He couldn't complete a thought. Honestly.
He and Trump both put them together, and oh my God.
Trump, man, honestly. That Jim Carville thinks Trump will resign in early 2027. Yeah. I don't know if that's true or not, but honestly, he can't stay awake. He can't remember. They should be invoking the 25th. It's shameful. I don't know if any of you guys heard this cabinet meeting. Some of the things that they were saying about him. You're so great. Nobody negotiates like you. Negotiate. He bombed the crap out of Iran. What negotiation went on? He said that war would last a week. We're months into it. He has no exit strategy.
And I think J.D. Vance and those guys in his cabinet know this too. Let's face it, they are acutely aware of his faculties and what's going on.
J.D. Vance just said something so dumb. It was ridiculous. I did comment on it on social media. Honestly, it's such a long list of dumb things that I can't remember them all, people. I can't remember them all.
But President Trump, either his ego will not allow him to resign. See, I'm not sure I agree with James Carville. I'm not sure President Trump's ego will allow him to resign, even in whatever state of mental capacity he's in. That is his overwhelming, that controls everything he does. And then you're right, but a strategic thing would be to resign, let J.D. Vance take the realm and be the incumbent and set him up, to be honest, to be the front runner. That's what possibly other normal people would do. But I think James Carville is giving President Trump too much credit on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's his ego and then also his family's ego, his 2 sons, his daughter. They're not going to let him resign. Though they would probably figure out a way to finagle that they would step in and take over and they'll be the Trump.
You guys remember?
You may be totally right.
Do you guys
let
remember?
Let me tell you what JD
Please looking at Sheila. Brenda, what were you going to say?
I was saying that, I'm dating myself, so everybody out there, but you could probably get it. It's worth getting. There was this movie in the 80s called Dave with Kevin Kline and Sigourney Weaver, and the president dies, and they look for somebody who looks just like him, and they find this guy who runs this nonprofit to fill in for him because he looks just like the president. And they freeze the president's body on some refrigerator in the White House. And it is funny, but I feel like we're not super far from that. And maybe that isn't as far-fetched as we thought that was, because when we saw the movie, it was like, this is a very funny comedy, and he ends up hooking up with the first lady who didn't have a good relationship with her husband anyway. And she ended up liking this guy, and he brings his accountant friend in to get the budget balanced and blah, blah, blah. But it's hilarious. But we would have never even it was a comedy, and it was so far-fetched, and it was one of those that you sat there and you were like, this would never happen. We can't even believe we're like, oh, is Mitch McConnell dead?
Yeah, no, life is imitating art. You got the Maeve, and then you also have Weekend at Bernie's. We got two things going on. So I totally agree.
Sheila, what do you got?
All right, here's what J.D. Vance said. If you go back to World War II or every major conflict in human history, they all ended with some kind of negotiation. No, they didn't. We bombed Japan, and then they surrendered. Hitler killed himself, and then Germany surrendered. Honestly, maybe there's negotiation at the end, but some major thing happened to do it. It just is. They're not negotiating with Iran. It's ridiculous.
And it's frightening.
And it's frightening, and it's driving up costs for Americans. Costs in Denver 1.8% higher than they were a year ago. Diesel fuel for farmers is 63% higher, which is sending our food costs up. That's what's happening under this administration. And you know what? They're having parties about how great they are. And he can't remember anything. He falls asleep at meetings and he shats his pants. Honestly, we cannot have this.
No.
We cannot have this.
Yeah. And it's fascinating too. I think that gas has gone up, the cost of gas but this is the same administration that anything that is from an EPA standpoint, we're getting rid of wind power. We're getting rid of solar. We don't like that. We have to focus on fossil fuels. But then at the same time, our gas is going up because, we didn't plan this very well with the Strait of Hormuz. We didn't think about that. That would happen if we bombed Iran. Yeah. We're really great. Yeah. You're great at running the country into the ground is what you're afraid of.
Now they want $1.8 trillion.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, people can't afford health care. People
Right.
can't afford childcare. People can't afford groceries. People can't afford gas. And they want $1.8 trillion. I don't even know what it's for. I haven't seen the itemized list because I'm guessing there's no itemized list because they forgot to create one.
And I think this is what people are, back to what we were talking about, this is what people are voting against. This is it. I think it's this. It's this. And like we talked about, there were these segment of people in the population, these swing voters that just vote each time, not for a party, but in self-interest. And they're like, for the reason you just gave, Sheila, all of those things, my life is not better than it was under Biden, and I will vote for somebody else this time. So whether that's their reasoning. And whether it's a congressional candidate or whether it's the presidential, or in this race, I think what we're going to see for these congressional candidates is that, first of all, this happens all the time in midterms. The opposite party always does very well. That's true. Happened with Obama. It happened with Bush. It happens all the time. So it's not going to be a big surprise if Democrats do very well because it happens all the time. But is the American public really upset? And I think those voters they took the bait, man, in 2024. They took the bait. They bit it off because Biden promised them Biden made these promises, things weren't better, and now things aren't better. And so they're gonna keep trying until they get some relief. So they're gonna keep trying. And you can't blame them.
Well, is there anything else we wanted to talk about? Really good conversation today.
Here's my last Trump of the day.
Yes.
Here, Trump has started an insider trading subscription service. If you pay Trump $100,000 a month, he will give you advance White House announcements on economic trade policy, which, by the way, sounds illegal to me. And I've got to believe it gets shut down. But that's our president of the United States. He's a grifter.
Once a grifter, always a grifter.
Anyway, those are my rants for today.
Yeah.
Yes. So next time we're going to find out some stuff on e-bikes. And I also want to dive into Mayor Johnston's policies and his vision for the city of Denver going forward. He's put some provocative things out there.
Yeah.
that probably need to be delved into. His childcare policy, his jab policies, all interesting, but need to be unpacked a bit.
Agreed.
Agreed. I want to hear too about your healthcare bill.
Yes, I may.
Yeah, I know. I do want to hear that.
What? It's not that exciting, but sure.
I think it might be. But let's close because Colorado, we are officially celebrating our 150th birthday and for the entire month of August. And there's going to be a lot going on. But I just want to close with, we've always done it first here in Colorado. So the women's suffrage in 1893, we were only the second state in the nation to do this. We've had labor fights like Ludlow, like the Chicago Civil Rights organizing in the 60s and 70s in Denver. So really, before it was a national slogan, Colorado was already doing this. So I hope as we look at the 150th, let's celebrate. And again, I'm going to quote John Lewis, let's get into some good trouble while we celebrate. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next time. Stay unfiltered, unbossed,
And unapologetically you. And keep your attitude. I'm Brenda.
I'm Sheila McDonald.
and I'm Kathy. See you next time, Attituders.